Hey guys, what's up? How do you create communities on Twitch? Is there an easy way to do it? Do you go to your dashboard, settings? Is there an easy way to pop out that bar to the left on Twitch? Because I don't know what the fuck any of these fucking symbols mean. Destiny, I made a new song. Oh, I found the arrow. Pop out. Oh, never mind. Is Twitch dying right now? What the fuck? Do you visit your parents sometimes? Yeah, I try to visit them once a year at least, maybe? Okay, nice song, buddy. God damn it. Alright, who's... I bet that as soon as the community thing is created, everybody went and grabbed like 50 trillion different fucking... 50 trillion fucking different community names. Who owns the politics community, and can I bully them out of it? What do you think? Control F, politics. There's literally not even fucking 20 viewers on it right now. How do I search communities? Communities, search. It's gonna be some fucking random ass... How do you find out who made a community? There's not even a single fucking channel. Fucking bullshit. Whatever, I don't give a fuck. Okay, I don't care anymore. Fuck all this shit. I just wasted 5 minutes of my fucking life. Can you have some more policy-heavy stuff from Shapiro? I feel like him savaging students is not that relevant. Well, I'm sorry that you're a really big Shapiro fanboy, but the stuff that's really popular is the stuff that we're going to look at, all right? I'm sorry that you are really, really big on sucking his dick and you want to ignore everything bad he says, but This video was posted to my subreddit, and then there's another one we're going to go over real fast. It's pretty quick because everything he says is really stupid, so it's pretty easy to go over it. You can throw me another random video after, and I can look at that if you want, but... Why don't you pull Shapiro on stream? I don't think he would be interested. I'm sure he'd be the most qualified person you've talked to so far on the right. I seriously doubt it. He's just as bad as the Stephen Molyneux guy, I think. Maybe not quite as bad, but he's right over there. All right, let's start with this video real fast. Do you want me to go point by point, or should we'll listen to the whole thing first? All right, we're gonna listen to the entire video first. Is my shit muted? Oh, whoops.
So what is your formal education background? So I guess a lot of people don't know what your undergraduate degree was in.
So I was at UCLA in political science and then Harvard Law School.
Okay. So you don't have, you wouldn't consider yourself an expert in sociology?
I mean, I don't consider sociology a particularly expert field, but go ahead. I think I'm able to read a sociological study.
It is a field of study, but so you're not necessarily an expert.
Yes, there are lots of fields of study.
Right. Well, what I'm getting at is there's a lot of topics.
Let's put it this way, I know a lot less about welding than I do about sociology.
What I'm getting at is that you're not considered an expert in sociology, psychology, gender studies, lesbian dance theory, many of these things that you've brought up tonight.
I know a lot more about all those others than lesbian dance theory. As far as, if you want to take issue with the argument, I would urge you not to use the argument from authority, which is somebody has a PhD by their name, they know what they're talking about. That's a dumb argument.
What I'm trying to get at is that the fact that you have any other further education in any of these topics or any of these fields of study.
I don't need a 7-year degree in sociology, no bullshit when I hear it.
And granted, that's your opinion.
Right, because I'm here, yeah, giving it.
That would mean that you're also offering kind of an unqualified opinion on a lot of these topics.
See, again, you're just making the argument from authority. I don't think slapping a PhD from Ferris State next to your name makes you an expert in all things in the field in which you propose to speak. Okay, the fact is that either my argument's good or my argument's bad. Citing to my credentials is a really bad way of making an argument. It's like it's actually the equivalent of, it's so funny, when people do this, it's the equivalent of actually a religious person saying, citing to the Bible for an argument. I'm a very religious person, right? I mean, see this? It's the yarmulke, okay? I'm a religious person, okay? I never cite to the Bible. The reason I don't cite to the Bible is because that's an argument from authority. Okay, you may not believe the authority to which I'm citing. I don't believe the authority to which you're citing. So you're going to have to make me an argument as to what I'm saying that's wrong instead of just saying I don't have the properly enumerated degree from the institution of your choice.
I'm merely citing academia. If you haven't done any significant study or any type of educational, you haven't established yourself as a PhD or a doctorate in any of these programs, so how can you make a qualified opinion on any of these topics is my question.
Because I have read the studies and I can have an opinion on them.
And that's your opinion and mine was just stated, so thank you.
Yes, that was my opinion.
Okay, so this is a really standard, edgy, professional internet debater. It's very standard for people to pull out like arguments or different fallacies when they're trying to win an argument. Sometimes they're used okay, sometimes they're not used okay.
So what is your formal?
We can go through this video and pick it up real fast. I just want to talk about an argument from authority real fast, okay? Because I don't think Ben Shapiro knows what it is, or maybe he does know what it is, but he's purposely misrepresenting it, okay? Hold on one second. An argument from authority is a common type of argument which can be fallacious, such as when an authority is cited on a topic outside their area of expertise, or when the authority cited is not a true expert. Historically, opinion on the appeal to authority has been divided. It has been held to be a valid argument about as often as it is considered to be an outright fallacy. John Locke, when the first identity, blah, 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 a specific argument, although he did not call this type of argument a fallacy, he did note that it can be misused by taking advantage of the respect and submission of the reader or listener to persuade them to accept the conclusion. So, basically, one of the big problems here when you're talking about an argument from authority is you're talking about citing the authority of somebody to overcome something that has been stated without having like a good contradiction. Let me give you an example of this, okay? So let's say that I bring up, 15 studies that say that Muslims are terrorists, okay? And I bring up 15 studies proving it. And I say, look, well, here are all my studies. Like, can you tell me why these are wrong? And then let's say that somebody else says that, well, I've got a PhD or whatever in religious studies, and you're wrong, right? That kind of a thing would be a sort of appeal to authority, right? Because the person isn't really disproving anything you're saying. He's just kind of saying, well, because I'm this, because I have this degree, you're wrong completely, right? That would be like an example of like a fallacious appeal to authority, all right? When you're talking about whose opinion is more qualified in a given field, so let's say that you've got somebody who has a PhD in religious studies and another guy that has no PhD, right? And he's giving his opinion on some religious text, and the other guy is saying, well, you're wrong for this and this and this and this reason or whatever, right? These are not fallacious appeals to authority. So let me give you a quick. We're gonna watch this again real fast, and I'm gonna point out a couple of like the really, really incorrect things that he's saying that like really drive me crazy.
So I was at UCLA in political science and then Harvard Law School.
So you wouldn't consider yourself an expert in sociology?
I don't consider sociology a particularly expert field, but go ahead.
Okay, anytime you run into a person that's willing to discredit entire fields of research, there is a high chance that this person has fallen into some horrible cognitive biases that they are not able or willing to recognize, okay? You're just not able to write off entire fields of study. You just can't do it. I haven't met a person smart enough to do it, and I haven't seen any truly intelligent people that do it. Actually, that's not even true. There are some people that do it. Bill Nye and Bill Nye and Neil deGrasse Tyson sometimes do this. I don't know if it's because the fame gets to their heads or what, but you can't write off entire fields of study. You can't. It just makes you look incredibly ignorant. You just can't do it.
I think I'm able to read a sociological study.
So you're not necessarily.
Yes, there are lots of fields of study.
When he says earlier that I think I'm able to read a sociological study, it sounds very, very, very not derisive. Very what's the word where you write off somebody else? It's like very something. There's like a word for it. I don't remember what it's called, but. This idea that laymen are capable of reading studies written by PhDs in a field and then rejecting those studies or citing those studies, this is literally the entire problem with science report. Oh, dismissive. Yeah, that was what I was. Is literally the entire problem with news reporting today about scientific studies. Is a layman will take one study, they will read it, and they'll go, oh, well, look, either cancer is cured or marijuana causes AIDS or eating too many eggs gives you ass cancer, 100% confirmed, right? These headlines all come from uneducated laymen who will read one headline or read a study, and they don't have the necessary credentials to contextualize that study or understand what exactly the study is concluding, right? And instead will extrapolate it to these outrageous things because they don't understand what it is they're reading, right?
One thing is a lot of topics.
So I know a lot less about welding than I do about sociology.
So the fact that Ben Shapiro is here claiming, I guess, to be an expert in sociology without having any academic background whatsoever in it, feels very Athene-esque to me, right? He's essentially making the Athene argument that he has these he's got expert credentials over all these different disciplines because he can read a study.
You're not considered an expert in sociology, psychology, gender studies, lesbian dance theory, many of the things that you've brought up tonight.
I know a lot more about all those others than lesbian dance theory. As far as if you want to take issue with the argument, I would urge you not to use the argument from authority, which is somebody has a PhD by their name, they know what they're talking about. That's a dumb argument.
If somebody has a PhD by their name in a given field, there is a much more higher likelihood that they know what they're talking about than a random layman. Now, that's not to say that you should necessarily believe what they say 100%, but somebody with a PhD in a given field has gone through the necessary credentials. Like, this is an argument that nobody believes what he just said. Even he doesn't believe what he just said, right? If some dude from WWF or WCW or WWE or whatever, or some massive fucking ripped as fuck bodybuilder, has some advice to give you about lifting, and then like a 4-year-old comes up and gives you some advice about lifting, right? Who are you going to listen to? Are you appealing to the argument of authority there, right? Or if somebody who is a famous composer, Hans Zimmer or John Williams, comes up and gives you some advice about composition, are you going to be more likely to listen to what they say over what a grade schooler tells you or a random guitar player, right? Right. So this idea that all forms of authority are bad and all appeals to authority are fallacious, one, it's not even supported by the definition of the fallacy, and two, even Ben doesn't believe that, right? I don't think he's arguing that he's an expert in those fields, but that he can have an opinion, even without official qualifications. I don't think he considers his opinion to be any more than that. That's because you probably have autism, and I took enough psychology in high school to diagnose you as being autistic. He very clearly said that he doesn't consider sociology to be a field that is worthy of any experts. He doesn't think it's a real field of study, and he thinks that he can read any sociological report and understand it completely. There isn't a clearer way that he can say what he just said. If you still don't understand it, then maybe you lack the necessary social skills or language interpretation or verbal capability to understand what he's saying. I don't know how else to put that to you.
What I'm trying to get at is the fact that if you have any other further education on any of these topics or any of these field study.
I don't need a 7-year degree in sociology to know bullshit when I hear it.
So I don't need a 7-year degree in sociology to know bullshit when I hear it. This is the same argument given. This same argument can be given to a million other things, right? I don't need to go and study biology to know that niggers are fucking stupid. I don't need a PhD in criminal background to know that niggers just fucking commit more crime and do more drugs than I don't need a background in whatever to know that faggots are fucking unnatural. I don't need to get a biology degree to know that fucking faggots like are just weird as fuck and don't belong in the internet, right?
Bruh.
These are the same kinds of arguments that uneducated people can make because it plays into something called confirmation bias, right? If you think that a certain thing is true, right, you are more likely to go out and find information that supports that thing. And welcome to the age of the internet. Anybody can go out and find a million different things that they believe are true, right? This idea that I don't need to go and study this to have a good opinion on it is just really, really, really ignorant. Really, really, really ignorant.
And granted, that's your opinion.
Right, because I'm here, getting it.
Meaning that you're also offering kind of unqualified opinion on a lot of these topics.
See, again, you're just making the argument from authority. I don't think slapping a PhD from Ferris State next to your name makes you an expert in all things in the field in which you propose to speak.
Not in all things, but that's why PhDs generally have specific disciplines. But I would take the opinion of somebody with a PhD in a particular field over a layman any day of the week, and I think that most intelligent people would.
Okay, the fact is that either my argument's good or my argument's bad. Citing to my credentials is a really bad way of making an argument. It's actually the equivalent of, it's so funny, when people do this, it's the equivalent of actually a religious person saying, citing to the Bible for an argument.
So this is really bad, but also really good because it demonstrates, again, that Ben Shapiro either wasn't raised in a religious household or was raised in a religious household that didn't really study their religion. You can absolutely cite holy books because these are authority documents. If you're arguing with somebody about the ethics or morality of something in relation to Christianity or Islam or Jewish or whatever, you can absolutely cite the Bible or the Quran or the Torah. Of course you can cite these things. These are authority documents. Like, it's not fallacious to say you shouldn't be able to do this because the Bible, blah, 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 it says it. Like, if you are a Christian, these are the defining documents for you. I don't know why. This is probably the worst example that he can use.
I'm a very religious person, right? I mean, see this? It's a yarmulke. Okay, I'm a religious person. Okay, I never cite to the Bible. The reason I don't cite to the Bible is because that's an argument from authority. Okay, you may not believe the authority to which I'm citing. I don't believe the authority to which you're citing. So you're going to have to make me an argument as to what I'm saying that's wrong instead of just saying I don't have the properly enumerated degree from the institution of your choice.
I'm merely citing academia. If you haven't done any significant study or any type of educational, you haven't established yourself as a PhD or a doctor in any of these programs, so how can you make a qualified opinion on any of these topics is my question.
Because I have read the studies and I can have an opinion on them.
And that's your opinion, and mine was just stated. So, thank you.
Yes, that was.
So, like, I can go and read a number of studies and have an opinion on them. So this is why I've told you a million times. That when I'm giving you an opinion, about something, I'm never usually reading raw data and giving you my opinion. I'm usually regurgitating the opinions of experts in the field because I don't consider myself an expert in these fields, and I would never dream to read raw data and try to feed you, something that I pulled out of like some science study, right? It's typically not a good idea to do that.
My opinion.
So, yeah. Destiny, still though, being able to actually break down arguments and evaluate them on their own merits instead of who or where they came from is a good thing, no? That is not saying every opinion is equivalent. Some of the PhD will most likely have better arguments. Okay, let me give you an example, okay? Let's say that you have, let's take somebody like me, okay? Just like a random person. And then let's take somebody who is 10 times more intelligent than me, okay? This person is just very, very, very smart. They've got really good critical thinking, okay? They're just very intelligent. They're wicked smart, okay? Very intelligent, okay? Now, whose opinion would you trust more, okay? If I were to give you a quick, if each of us had to provide you a quick 5-minute breakdown on a StarCraft 2 game, whose opinion would you trust more, right? It doesn't really matter that the other guy is a smart, critical thinker, right? He just doesn't have the background to do it. It doesn't mean that I'm smarter than him, but I do have the background to do it, right? I could give you a quick 5-minute breakdown on why each player did the strategy they did, what they were hoping to accomplish with it, what they were trying to avoid from the other player, why they did the things that they did, right? And the other person just couldn't do it. Now, even if that person is smarter than me, he wouldn't be able to do it. But why, right? It's because I have the necessary background that anytime you go, I feel like these things are all really obvious. I'm sorry if it sounds like I'm being condescending. Anytime you go to analyze something, you're not just analyzing something in a vacuum at face value. You're bringing in a plethora of background experience that allows you to contextualize exactly what's going on so that you can give a very accurate analysis and a very holistic analysis of what's going on, right? If the other person was truly 10 times more intelligent than me, right, he would say, I'm not really capable of giving you a great opinion in this area. I would probably defer to somebody with more study or expertise in that area, right? Much the same way that I wouldn't be able to give you a breakdown on a fighting game thing, right? Or like on a Super Smash Brothers match. I wouldn't be able to give you a play-by-play or a breakdown of why the players did what they did, right? But you could take somebody that's 10 times less intelligent than me, somebody that's like a literal fucking retard, right? Maybe. And that person, if they have a big background in Super Smash Brothers, they could give you a much better breakdown than I could. Why? Even though I'm so much smarter than this other person? Well, it's because I just don't have the necessary background to do it, right? Do you understand that the background is really, really, really important because it allows you to develop a more holistic, contextualized opinion that matters rather than just some breakdown in a vacuum that might not represent what's actually going on. Does that make sense? Does somebody want to give me another example and I can try? But this doesn't work as well when you're talking about sociology over something like maths or video games, except it actually works even better. The problem is that things like sociology tend to affect you in real life, so it's very easy for you to fall into these cognitive biases that make it, like, for instance, let me give you an example, okay? If you were to ask the average Trump voter, how is the economy doing today versus 40 years ago, they would tell you the economy is fucking horrible. Or look at Trump saying things like crime is at a 45-year high. There are a lot of people that actually believe this stuff. There was what was that thing? There was a poll that was posted a while ago. I think it was posted on Reddit where like some percentage of Republicans actually believe. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? Like there are people that believe these things. And these are things that experts in these fields can tell you why people believe them and why they're wrong, but people just believe it because they're looking at like one raw stat or they're looking at one person saying something without actually understanding what's going on. But because it personally impacts them, they think that they can have like a really qualified opinion on it, even though they don't see the entire picture. Did you reach out to Stephen Molyneux? I think I would actually deny. I don't think I would actually go through with an argument with him. I think I would, because I could seriously kill myself talking to that guy. He's a total idiot. And he's actually insane, too. He's not just dumb. He's actually, like, very, very mentally disturbed. Oh, global warming is a really, really, really great place to pick out. Is a really great place to pick out when people don't know what they're talking about too. Let me see if I can find you an example. Oh, actually, I know the example, but actually, we can do all of this with global warming. Can you give an example of how he was disturbed? I can think of 2 videos off the top of my head. 3, actually, but we'll watch them. Oh, actually, we can watch them before our next shaprio video. So this is a very common thought, right? It's as part of my prep for Lauren, I actually watched one of her videos on global warming. Oh, actually, maybe we can go and look that video up. That was a good video too, right? Global ice is receding. Do you just read fake news? Antarctica ice is at record levels. Global warming is a complete fraud, right? This is an example of, I'm sure this guy is well-meaning, okay? But he's uneducated and he doesn't know what he's talking about, okay? I'm uneducated as well, okay? But the difference is I acknowledge that, so I seek the opinions of experts on the field, right? So one thing that I would be very careful of is I would try not to take like a single stat, like global ice receding in one area, and then try to extrapolate that to say climate change is fake, right? This is a very common pitfall that people fall into. Antarctica ice is growing. That is not false, right? But the reason why it's growing is because ice is being lost all around the rest of the world, right? So here we can defer to a NASA article. Sea ice increases in Antarctica do not make up for the accelerated Arctic sea ice loss of the last decades, a new NASA study finds. As a whole, the planet has been shedding sea ice at an average annual rate of 13,500 square miles since 1979, the equivalent of losing an area of sea ice larger than the state of Maryland every year, right? This is a good example of taking one stat and saying, oh, well, look, see, it's all, like it's all good, right? People do this a lot with very complicated fields. Sociology is another one of those fields. Economics is another one of those fields. Psychology is another one of those fields. Do we want to go into this? This is like a whole other like parallel topic.
Global warming, climate change, whatever you want to call it. Over the last few decades, scientists, government officials, and NGOs have all been trying to convince us that it is destroying our planet. Temperatures will increase, sea levels will rise, and if we don't drown first, the heat will kill us. And at this point, the damage appears to be irreversible. Our chances of surviving as a species are looking pretty bleak, especially considering that even if the US and Canada decide to completely stop emitting CO2, which is unlikely, we still have no control over top emitters such as China, Russia, and India. Despite all this, I remain hopeful for humanity and the planet. Not because I think we are going to drastically reduce carbon emissions in the next couple years,
I endorse
but because
global warming.
climate scientists
Fuck the
have proven
equator,
to us
nothing
that they are
good ever
quite
came from
effective
there.
at predicting
Canada
the
will
polar opposite
be a
of what is
global
actually going
superpower
on.
when the U.S. can no
But I
longer
can't just
feed
say this
itself
without
and
backing up my
California
claims.
becomes a
So let's go
dessert.
through the many
Pile
times
Trudeau
climate
over
scientists
Russell.
have failed at predicting the future. Let's start with something I was told perpetually through elementary school. Polar bears are definitely going extinct due to the Earth's rising temperature caused by carbon emissions. Yeah.
Okay, I don't think that the existence or death of polar bears has much to do with global warming, but
According to the Fur Institute of Canada, out of the 13 regions that Arctic ice by summer 2013, that we would no longer have any Arctic ice by summer 2013. This was stated by Al Gore, the man behind the documentary An Inconvenient Truth. He was quoting US oceanographer Wisla Mislowski, who predicted that by 2013, the Arctic ice could completely disappear due to warming caused by carbon emissions. But what actually happened when we reached summer 2013? Well, ice in the Arctic expanded by 1.38 million square kilometers.
So here we have the fucking memes where we're not paying attention to global sea level or global ice levels, but just like one particular area.
And this wasn't even one of the craziest predictions. In 2005, the UNEP came to the conclusion that by 2010, climate change would create 50 million climate refugees. fleeing from low...
This is taking the most extremist claims that we can find, and then when those extreme claims aren't proven, then you say that the entire platform is bad. I'm pretty sure this is some type of fallacy.
...flying Pacific Islands, coasts, and the Caribbean. What actually happened in 2010? Nothing. In fact, a lot of the places they predicted people would be fleeing from increased in population. In the year 2000, Dr. David Viner, a senior research scientist at the Climatic Research Unit at the University of East Anglia, predicted that in a few short years, snowfall would become a very rare and exciting event, and that children just aren't going to know what snow is anymore.
This is another extremist claim.
I wonder how Dr. David Viner felt during the big freeze of 2010, the coldest January across Great Britain and Ireland since 1987.
I don't know why you would point to one thing when the last 12 of the last 13 years have been the hottest recorded on record, that you would point to two regions that had one season that was cold. But okay.
And how about all the crazy weather? In a 2007 forecast report by the IPCC, they predicted that we would see more hurricanes and typhoons that were more intense with heavier wind speeds and larger peaks. Yet 2013 was the quietest hurricane season in recorded history. Supporting this, President Obama, in his inauguration speech in 2013, stated,
"Some may still deny the overwhelming judgment of science, but none can avoid the devastating impact of raging fires and crippling drought and more powerful storms."
Yet 2013 wildfire season outcomes were far below average, and the National Academy of Sciences has predicted this downward trend will continue. And in a 2012 study published by the journal Nature, they discovered that there has been little change in global drought over the past 60 years. Even the EPA admitted that droughts in North America have become less frequent, less intense, and shorter. So yes, President Obama, despite the overwhelming judgment of science, these claims are very easy to deny. These are just a few examples of completely wrong predictions. There have been many more proven just as ridiculous. The global cooling period of the 70s is a great example of this. Overall, climate change has been completely exaggerated by scientists over the years. But don't take my word for it, take theirs. James Lovelock, the Gaia Hypothesis scientist, whose predictions played a major role in the climate change movement, has taken back his predictions and stated that the climate is doing its usual tricks. There's nothing much really happening yet. We were supposed to be halfway to a frying world now. Even the IPCC has admitted that...
It's good memes. All right, we're going to do one more Shapiro video. All right, this is the other video that I was recommended. This is a much more popular. And I could do the pull apart, but I actually found out when I went to look this up this morning, PolitiFact actually did a pull apart as well. But we'll just listen to this.
Here with Reality Check. A couple of weeks ago, HBO's Bill Maher got into it with the Islamic expert and horrifyingly mediocre actor who should never, ever, 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 ever play Batman, Ben Affleck, over whether Islam was indeed a violent religion. Here's the exchange.
And you painting the whole group religion with that same brush.
Let's get down to who has the right answer here. 1 billion people, you say. All these billion people don't hold any of these...
1,500,000 or something.
Don't hold these pernicious beliefs?
No,
I wouldn't...
well, they don't.
Of course, he's not alone in taking the PC position that Muslims the world over are tolerant and liberal. He's joined by our president, Barack Obama.
Islam teaches peace. Muslims the world over aspire to live with dignity and a sense of justice.
Wow, it's just like John Lennon's Imagine. Now, the question isn't whether Islam itself is violent. It's what its adherents believe, because that's what they act upon. There's plenty of violent material in the Old and New Testaments. Hey, I'm an Orthodox Jew. I read the Old Testament a lot. But believers in those particular texts are not currently ramming airliners into towers or beheading journalists or mutilating female genitalia. So, let's examine the question. Is radicalism in the Muslim world a tiny minority phenomenon? So to answer that question, we need to define our terms. We're really not talking about people who are active terrorists. Radical beliefs are a lot broader than terrorists, and anybody who argues otherwise is being naive or foolish or disingenuous. But terrorists draw their moral, financial, and religious support from those who are not terrorists themselves. So, who are the radicals? Ben Affleck actually was right on this. There are approximately 1.6 billion Muslims on the planet, and they're from 49 different countries in terms of where they have a majority. All the population stats, by the way, are from Pew Research as of 2011. Indonesia is the world's most populous Muslim country. It's got almost 205 million Muslims living there. According to one 2009 poll, it showed almost 50% of Indonesians actually support strict Sharia law, not just in Indonesia, but in a lot of countries, and 70% blamed the United States, Israel, or somebody else for 9/11. So, you make that calculation, it's about 143 million people who are radicalized. You scared yet? We're just getting started. Okay, Egypt, 80 million Muslims. According to that same 2009 poll, it showed that 65% want strict Sharia law in every Islamic country, and almost 70% said that they had positive or mixed feelings about bin Laden. So that's 55.2 million more radicals. Pakistan has almost 179 million Muslims. 76%, just over 3/4, want strict Sharia law in all Islamic countries. That is another 135.4 million radicals. Bangladesh, not a country you tend to think of as Muslim, but there are 149 million Muslims living there. As of 2013, just over a quarter said suicide bombings or targeting of civilians was sometimes justified. Another 82% want Sharia to be the official law of the country, and 2/3 said honor killings of women can sometimes be justified. Honor killings, 2/3. It's 121.9 million radicals. Nigeria, 75.7 million Muslims live there. 71% favor Sharia law. That's 53.7 million people. Iran, 74.8 million Muslims. 83% favor implementation of Sharia law as of last year, so that's 62.1 million more radicals. Turkey has 74.7 million Muslims, and 32%, this is a moderate Muslim country, probably the most moderate Muslim country, 32% said honor killings of women could actually be justified sometimes. So that's 23.9 million radical Muslims in our moderate ally, Turkey. Morocco, 32.4 million Muslims live there. Just over 3/4 support Sharia law. That's 24.6 million radical Muslims in Morocco. Iraq, 31.1 million Muslims live there. 78% say honor killings of women can sometimes be justified. That amounts to 24.3 million Muslim radicals. Afghanistan, 24 million people. A huge majority, 76%, support at least occasionally, or just once in a while, honor killings of women. 99% actually want Sharia to be the law of the land. So it's like a Cuban election over there. 24 million radical Muslims over in Afghanistan. Jordan, smaller Muslim country, 6.4 million Muslims. Right now, Hamas is enjoying like a 60% approval rating. So 3.8 million radical Muslims in Jordan, which is, again, a moderate country. Palestinian areas, right? We're sending literally hundreds of millions of dollars to the Palestinian areas. We are, the American taxpayers. 4.3 million Muslims live in the Palestinian areas. 78% of those had positive or mixed feelings about bin Laden. 89% support terror attacks on our ally, Israel. 89% support Sharia law. We should give them a state, folks. That's 3.83 million radical Muslims.
Wait, is he? I'm sorry, I stopped listening. Is he talking about Palestine? Hold on.
Palestinian areas. And we're sending literally hundreds of millions of dollars to the Palestinian areas. We are, the American taxpayers. 4.3 million Muslims live in the Palestinian areas. 78% of those had positive or mixed feelings about bin Laden. 89% support terror attacks on our ally, Israel. 89% support Sharia law. We should give them a state, folks.
I wonder why they hate Israel so much. What?
3.3
I didn't even remember that one, sorry.
million radical Muslims.
Okay.
How about in the West? Okay, let's take it to France. France, 4.7 million Muslims live there. A 2007 poll showed 35% of French Muslims said suicide bombings could sometimes be justified. It's 1.6 million radical Muslims living in France. Great Britain, 2.8 million Muslims living there. 78% wanted cartoonists of Muhammad legally prosecuted. So we're talking about 2.2 million radical Muslims in Great Britain. How about here in the United States? Well, we have a very moderate Muslim population. We do. 2.6 million Muslims live here, according to Pew Research. 13% said violence against civilians can be justified. 19% said they were either favorable toward Al-Qaeda or just didn't know. Because who knows, really?
Bit of a thank
That's
you
almost
for
500,000
all your
radical Muslims
stuff
here in
on
the United States.
PC
Here is the
building. Really helped me with building my current gaming system.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks a lot.
No problem.
total of the countries that we've gone through just now. 680,030,000. 680,030,000 radical Muslims. And that's out of a total population in those countries of 942.4 million Muslims total. And it seems fair to assume that similar proportions of people in countries like, say, like Algeria, Syria, Sudan, Saudi Arabia, Yemen, Tunisia, Somalia, and Libya are also radicalized. And if they are, then, well, we're above 800 million Muslims who are radicalized. More than half the Muslims on Earth. That's not a minority. That's now a majority. And that's still not even surveying hundreds of millions of Muslims in other countries. In other words, the myth of the tiny radical Muslim minority is just that. It's a myth. And, unfortunately, it's a myth that's going to get a lot of civilized people killed.
Okay, so this is a really good example of somebody with no background in what they're talking about trying to make some factual claims about groups of people. Firstly, a lot of these questions are just dumb. Like, to determine whether or not somebody is radicalized, somebody says, do you think that you can sometimes justify the killing of civilians? I mean, we do that all the time with Israel. We do that all the time with drone strikes. This is literally like American foreign policy. Sometimes civilians get killed in our attacks. It just happens. Fuck, we shot, was it the first Gulf War when we shot down a plane full of fucking civilians? Was that the first Gulf War? Does anybody remember? Where we literally blew up a civilian airliner and we were like, whoops, sorry, I think it was an Iranian one. Israel does it all the time with Hamas and Palestine. Like, literally. So if you were to poll Americans, would you say that the majority of American people that believe that civilian deaths are sometimes justified, are these people all radicalized Americans? When you poll a Muslim and you say, do you want the state law to be Sharia law? Do you think that these people, firstly, obviously you're going to say yes if you're a fucking Muslim, much the same way that Christians want biblical law in the United States. You're probably going to say yes if you think everybody should fall under biblical law. Secondly, do you think that Sharia law is the same thing in every single state? Like, when he talks about the Sharia law that people support, say in Indonesia, where he finds these hundreds of millions or whatever of radicalized Muslims, not hundreds of millions, but like, you realize that like Indonesia had a female president. Do you think that the Sharia law that Indonesia supports is the same type of Sharia law that keeps women from driving fucking cars in Saudi Arabia? Like, these are horrible questions to determine whether or not a population is radicalized, right? This idea that every single person believes that Sharia law is the same thing is so like cringeworthy, because it's like it's like literally saying every Christian thinks that you should follow biblical law the same. That's not true, right? Pointing to female genital mutilation and saying that female genital mutilation is a good way to see if populations are radicalized. How many people in the United States? Wasn't it like, I'm pretty sure the majority of United States babies were circumcised. Are these people, everybody that's for circumcision in the United States, are these people all radicalized? Hold on, let me see if I can find the actual percentage. In 2005, 56% of male newborns were mutilated prior to release from the hospital, according to statistics. That's in 2005. Is every single person that did this radicalized? So I mean, like, first of all, these questions are really bad, and this is without even going too deeply into it. We'll read the political fact article on it too, because they dig into a lot of it as well. Hold on one second. Oh, fuck.
2 nukes were justified against civilians.
Fuck, how could I forget that? Oh, shit. I didn't even remember. I didn't even think of World War II. Holy shit, we literally fucking nuked 2 civilian cities. God damn. Fuck, I can't believe I didn't think of World War II. Holy fuck. Circumcision is not comparable to severity to female genital mutilation. First of all, yes, it is. I'm pretty sure that, is it type 1? Hold on, let me check up type 1 FJM. I think it's the most comparable form of circumcision. No, wait. I think it would be type 4. Hold on, let me check out. What is type 4? Type 3? Does it only go to type 3? Hold on, maybe it's only type 3. I'm pretty sure that there are types. Hold on, fuck. I should have gotten my FJM article up. There are types of female genital mutilation where you only trim off the like the hood of the clit or whatever in order to make the clit less sensitive, because I think it dries out a little bit, kind of like the head of your dick when you chop the foreskin off.
People think.
But oh, is this a vagina? Oh no. But I mean, regardless of what you think, I mean, FJM is worse than circumcision. I think that's pretty easy to say. I would never claim the opposite, that circumcision is somehow worse or equal than all FJM. That's true. However, both of them are almost equally abhorrent, right? You're talking about oh fuck, there's a lot of mutilated bros in chat, so I don't want to be like too harsh, but mutilating somebody at birth, mutilating somebody's genitals at birth is not a good thing. Like, no, none of that is a good thing. Like, none of that is good thing. Oh, hold on. We're gonna read the PolitiFact article. The rise of the Islamic State group and its strategic use of grisly beheadings has stirred a heated debate in the country about the nature of Islam. Some critics say core Muslim beliefs incite violence. Defenders of religious tolerance say extremists represent only a tiny minority of Muslims. Conservative pundits Ben Shapiro jumped in to say the nature of Islam is irrelevant. More importantly, according to Shapiro, it is what the followers believe, because that's what they act upon. Through this lens, Shapiro painted a disturbing picture of the religious wellspring for which people who fly planes into towers and behead their prisoners. Shapiro is an editor-at-large with the conservative website Breitbart.com and co-founded a conservative media analyst group, Truth Revolt. In a video, Shapiro blended survey data and population statistics for 15 countries. A good example of his thesis about Islam is in the way he talked about Indonesia, the world's most populous Muslim nation. It's got almost 205 million Muslims, Shapiro said. According to one 2009 poll, it showed almost 50% of Indonesians support strict Sharia law, not just in Indonesia, but in a lot of countries. And 70% blame the United States, Israel, or somebody else for 9/11. You make that calculation. It's about 143 million people who are radicalized. You scared yet? We're just getting started. To get to 143 million radicalized Muslims, Shapiro took the 70% of Indonesian Muslims who blamed someone other than Al-Qaeda for the September 11, 2001 terrorist attack. Shapiro then made similar extrapolations using polling data for a number of other countries, often measuring support for Sharia law, codes of behavior in Islam. Then Shapiro summed up and applied the percentage of radicalized Muslims from the 15 nations to a number of other Muslim-majority countries and, with 1.6 billion Muslims worldwide, reached a shocking conclusion. We're above 800 million Muslims radicalized, more than half the Muslims on earth, Shapiro said. That's not a minority, that is now a majority. Shapiro spoke with great self-assurance, but as we looked at his claims that most Muslims were radicalized, we were left scratching our heads. In the first place, Shapiro consistently used the highest percentages available in the surveys to maximize the number of Muslims he could tag with the radical label. Secondly, he used a broad definition of radical. To choose one main example, there are many varieties of how people interpret Sharia law, and support for it says little about a person's specific beliefs. Shapiro cited the work of the Pew Research Center in some of his analysis, and much of our work relies on the same source. We tried to reach Shapiro and were unsuccessful. In about half of the countries he assessed, Shapiro focused on support for Sharia law. According to the Council on Foreign Relations, Sharia guides all aspects of Muslim life, including daily routines, familiar and religious obligations, and financial dealings. It is a moral code that covers marriage, crime, and business. Different branches of Islam use different versions of the law. Some elements are widely accepted, such as the immorality of fraud, but for countries and sects that follow the harshest versions, in which thieves have had their hands cut off and unfaithful women are stoned to death, the opposition from the West and the parts of the Muslim world as well is strong and visceral. For Shapiro, support for any form of Sharia law means one thing: the believer is a radical. Accordingly, Shapiro looks at places like Pakistan and says that 76% of Muslims want Sharia law in all Muslim countries. Pakistan has 179 million Muslims. Therefore, that is another 135.4 million radicals. But looking at a 2013 Pew report on Muslims, we found that the picture is more complicated. Pew reported that 84% of Pakistani Muslims wanted Sharia law, but of those, nearly 2/3 said it should apply only to Muslims. Run those numbers through, and you get about 54 million Muslims who think all Pakistanis should be subject to Sharia law. That's about 60% fewer than Shapiro said. We are not saying that Pakistan has 54 million radical Muslims. Our point is that more detailed polling data changes the results a great deal. Shapiro chose one yardstick. Other analysts could, with at least as much justification, choose another. The impact of which question is used becomes even clearer if we look at support for suicide bombings against civilian targets. Shapiro said actual terrorists draw moral, financial, and religious support from those who are not terrorists themselves. Even if you believe Shapiro, it doesn't mean that attitudes towards terrorism are irrelevant. Pew asked Muslims if they support suicide bombings against civilians. In Pakistan, 13% of Muslims said such attacks in defense of Islam could often or sometimes be justified. If that's your definition of radicals, then Pakistan has about 23 million of them. Hardly a small number, but it's a far cry from the 135 million Shapiro counted. The following table shows how, using reasonable alternative measures of radicalism, Shapiro's majority can become a distinct minority. You can see how Shapiro reached his totals by watching the video. So this is going by different questions that you could ask to figure out what the smallest numbers of radical Muslims would be, right? To be clear, we're not saying that 181 million radical Muslims, we're not saying that there are 181 million radical Muslims. We're simply saying that by applying different but reasonable criteria to the same data, you can reach a vastly different result. Sharia does not equal radical. Given that Shapiro used support for Sharia and Sharia law in 7 of the 15 countries as a marker for radicalism, we should note that the experts we reached urged a more cautious approach. Pew found that when you ask Muslims about specific elements in Sharia law, support shifts. According to James Bell, director of international survey research at Pew, many Muslims will say that they want religious judges deciding family or property disputes, but ask them about corporal punishments for criminals or the death penalty for apostates, and the support drops off considerably. The key takeaway is that Muslims differ in what they mean by Sharia and how they want it applied. Jim Zogby, president of the Arab American Institute, a political and policy advocacy group for Arab Americans, said most Muslims don't think about every element in Sharia. It indicates a degree of nominal faithfulness, Zogby said. If I say I support the law in the abstract, it doesn't commit me to supporting various and asserted aspects. In 2 countries, Shapiro focused on support for honor killings. Zogby said that as cruel as honor killings are, they are not tied to beliefs that underlie beheadings and suicide bombings. One has nothing to do with the other. Maria Sobolewska, a lecturer in quantitative methods and politics at the University of Manchester, England, studied polls in that country in the wake of the 2005 bus and subway bombings. Sobolewska found enormous variation in Muslim responses depending on small changes in the wording of the questions. What we receive as a true picture of what Muslims think is mostly an artifact of what they get asked. We should note that we found no solid estimate of the number of radical Muslims worldwide. For example, a 2014 report on jihadist terrorists from the Bipartisan Policy Center did not quantify the size of the jihadist population. I'm sorry. So, not supporting parts of the Holy Book is such cognitive dissonance. Guess what, buddy? Christians do it too. So basically, now, in reading all of this, be very mindful, PolitiFact did not say that there are not radical Muslims. It didn't say the number of radical Muslims, and it didn't say that we should ignore all problems with Islam. All it's saying is that the numbers that Ben here reached are incredibly arbitrary and completely manufactured, right? Do you understand? This is my problem with people like this, is that this is not an honest way to collect data, right? This is not an honest way to present facts. This is why, of the videos that I've seen of Ben Shapiro, I don't consider him to be a very uniquely intelligent or qualified person to talk about these things, because he seems to fall into the exact same mental pitfalls and the same cognitive traps that every other person on the right that says these same things does. I don't consider him to be exceptional in that regard. Anyway. I haven't read enough about Sam Harris. I thought about picking up The Moral Landscape. I might read it just so I can have a better opinion of him. But somebody wanted let me see if I can find.
Can I tell you what I said to someone who gave me that she's your mother argument? Please do. Someone said to me, Steph, but she's your mother. And I said, yes, she is. And that's why she's not fucking dead now. The bond was strong enough that I didn't fucking kill her. And that's my forgiveness. But the idea that I'm going to go and cut her birthday cake, that's insane.
I'm only doing this to show that he's a little crazy. This doesn't necessarily go into any of his, like, is he intelligent or not, but just that he's a little bit fucking crazy. I could bring up that one video again with him debating that poor kid, but this guy is...
I would like to read to you something.
This guy is crazy.
Today. Someone wrote, hi there. I am a fourth-year management major and a philosophy minor.
Here we are.
I played college hockey in the ACAC for 3 years. I love your show, and I respect what you do. Keep up the good work. What a lovely message. The message, I guess you could say, slightly sullied by the fact that this fine young man sent me $1. $1. Now, some people are very generous, don't get me wrong. The people who are very generous have shared with me their frustrations at the free ride nature of most of the people who listen to this philosophy show. This is Stefan Molyneux from Free Domain Radio. If you want to support the show, I strongly urge you to do so. I think it's the best chance for a virtuous future. It's fdrurl.com/donate. And if not, drop philosophy, go to church, paint yourself blue, and go cheer yourself hoarse at some bullshit political rally. But please, get out of the goddamn way.
God damn, dude. Oof. Ugh. Oh, he makes fun of another small donation. Hold on.
Well, we did receive a delightful 50-cent donation yesterday.
50 cents. Wait. 50 cents US dollars. So I'd like you to think of that as 50 cents and a half.
And when you
of which PayPal takes about 49 cents and half a kidney. So.
Actually, it's 31 cents. Which
they took 31 cents.
19 cents.
Good. I think we're fighting the wrong case.
I think homeless men would get offended if you dropped that in their tip cup, personally.
Yeah, unless it was like a huge amount of spittle too, in which case it'd just be an invitation to a fist fight.
It did come with a note, though.
Yeah, let's enjoy the note.
The note said, "I don't agree with everything you say, but I appreciate the time you dedicate to your research. You are making the world a much more thoughtful place, so thanks."
No, sorry, you just read that a little incorrectly, Mike. It's not a much more thoughtful place, because a much more thoughtful place would be like 75 cents. It actually is just a more thoughtful place. Now, I got to tell you, as far as compliments go, I mean, first of all, there's the poke in the eye of 50 cents. I think that's quite important. But what I like is that I don't agree with everything you say, but I appreciate the time you dedicate to your research. Now that is like, it's not that I find you very attractive, but I really do appreciate the amount of makeup you have on.
You try really hard. That's nice.
Clearly, you are looking at a lot of stuff before doing a show. And I just wanted to tell you that I know that you're looking at a lot of stuff before doing a show, and that the show, without that stuffness that you're looking at, would be different. So here's someone, I think pretty much they're telling us all about their childhood. That would sort of be my guess, but not even close to knowing what that is. Or maybe it's like somebody with a bad family, and his he is making the donation, but his parents are writing the note and choosing the amount. That's sort of my guess. But that was something quite special to receive, and to that person, I just wish there was a way of sending your 19 cents back, because if 19 cents is important to you, or 50 cents is important to you,
Destiny,
I really feel
gay.
terrible about taking it from you. Like, here, mister, here's my last 50 cents in the world for all of the research that I'm sure you do. I'm like, wow, please take this back. This is money that is embarrassing to receive. Or if you have a lot more than that, then I'm sorry, but we can't thank you in the way that we would like to because of non-assault laws. Anything else you'd like to add?
Well, I do.
Most people are susceptible to outside influences. I mean, that's just the basic reality of the human mind. We're impressionable. What language do you end up speaking? By golly, it's the language you were raised with, right? I mean, even if your parents have a very thick foreign accent, you will generally end up speaking like your peers, not like your parents. So we're very susceptible. And when there are groups that are failing in society, then
Hi Destiny, you're gay.
Oh, whoa, are you mad that I muted my mic there? Are you mad about that? Be honest, guys. How fucking mad did that make you? Alright, we have a brand new We have a brand new Minecraft server. How excited are you guys? Wow, I like the tab list. I can't even read the fucking names. Why did Destiny only analyze 2 Shapiro videos? Is that enough to call him? I'm sorry, how many videos do I need to watch of him? Do you have a different one that you want me to watch and go through, buddy? Wait, I don't know who this is. Should I? Who's Jordan Peterson? I don't know.
You got
All right, welcome to TYT.
3-hour video. Kill yourself, dude. Wow, I'm sorry Tubby's awesome for ruining your life. Oh god. 81 pages of shit we can build now. Unblockable damage against werewolves.
DANKMEMES.
How deep does the meme go? Alright, I don't care anymore.
So much stuff. Dude.
Is Aghanim here so I can make fun of him?
No.
God damn it.
Yeah, actually he is here.
I think he's AFK.
Okay, is there like a list of the fucking mod list so I know what the fuck to do in this game?
Yeah.
Where is it?
Yeah.
Is it pinned?
Okay, go to the pins and you see like the pasty? That's all the active mods that aren't like the background
Tell
only mods that you actually
McSpam to
do
turn
stuff and
off the
affects
fucking
gameplay.
hunger
For
mod.
starting out, I recommend Tinker's Construct.
For starting out, I recommend that you don't tell me what the fuck I want to do, okay? This is my experience.
I wasn't
alright?
telling you to do
Yeah,
that. I
you
was
just,
recommending.
you
It was a
recommended.
recommendation.
Alright, well, I recommend that you introduce a razor to your fucking throat, okay? No, it's just my recommendation though, okay?
No bully. Consideration, okay?
Wait, dude, I just found something really cool. I gotta interrupt you guys. I can make a foot-long sub sandwich in this game.
Holy shit, dude.
That was worth it.
A foot-long sub sandwich. What is that, like 6 times bigger than your dick? Fucking got him, dude. God
I
damn
think it's
it.
a little bit more than that.
Justin, you, to be honest, you had to think about that math. Don't even fucking.
Wait, dude, I can make a taco? Holy shit, this game is sweet.
Alright, so why are people complaining about the food?
Because food is retarded.
Because they're
No,
terrible.
fuck off and shit.
Everyone who complains
It's
about the
fine.
food, I try and tell them like how to actually get it going, and no one listens. So then they complain that they starve to death.
Tell us right now.
Build a farm.
You get seeds and you can't.
What
don't
happens
actually,
when the
like,
farm
eat the
doesn't grow
direct
where you're
food.
at?
Press U on the food, go to the shapeless crafting, press
Well,
shift over
maybe
the thing
you
and see what
shouldn't
gives
be
you
in a
more food,
biome
and then you
where
make
food
those.
grows slowly.
I didn't even know there were biomes for food grows slowly.
Yeah, when you
Yeah.
hover over the food, it shows you what one it grows best in.
Mike Spam.
What's up?
What on God's green earth made you think it was a good idea to include the Hunger Overhaul mod?
It's perfect. It's the best mod in this mod pack.
Makes it so realistic, dude.
Because it's the only way to get people to actually make Pam's food.
It's also really good for
I
player
mean,
interaction.
people were using Pam's food